Yo, what up guys? Old School Dan here, your old school bodybuilding coach, and in this video I want to break down why I think Wessley VIssers isn't classic. So, dive right into it. Before I say anything, I think Wessley is a good bodybuilder. I've seen his channel before. I do like it. I actually do want to give him credit for one of the videos that I actually learned from was that Frank Zane, Wesley found a routine by Frank Zane about how doing the concentric part of the movement really brings out the striations in the legs. So get more of that definition in the legs. So that's something I got from him. So I really appreciate Wessley for putting that out and sharing that with all of us. But to dive right into the video, I want to break down why I think Wessley isn't classic. So let's jump right into it. So first off, I actually wrote down some notes about why he isn't classic, and I want to start off with the first one, which is I feel like one of the first things that I've noticed is that I think it might be the amount of drugs he takes, because I think he's just too shredded and too conditioned all the time, where it doesn't look right. Like like every time I see him, he's always shredded or always conditioned, like super conditioned. I'm like, dude, this guy's so damn striated all the freaking time. Like his shoulders, um, definitely the shoulders and the legs, like it's super striated. I'm like, dude, there's something about this that isn't right. I was like, I think this is sort of why he doesn't look classic. He might be using like, is it Anavar or is it Clan? They just look so damn shredded. And I don't know what kind of drugs he's using, but I think it really takes away from the actual really looking classic effect, because these guys back in the day um they didn't weren't super striated all the time. Like you got guys like Tom Platz who were pretty good, but like this is so almost over and like it's just, I think it's just too much, it's too shredded. Like guys, Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't even this shredded on stage. Like, so I think that's one of the things. The other thing I want to talk about is the rib cage that he has. It's a bit strange because look, like it's just kind of let me show you another good example. Much. See, look at here. So we got Wessley on the left, Arnold Schwarzenegger on the right, and look at Wesley's and Arnold's rib cage. Arnold has more of more of that Reg Park. Everybody like Mike Mentzer has it. Frank Zane. It's more of a round or like a U rib cage, whereas Wesley's is sort of like a square. Let's see how this protrudes out here, and you see it a lot in the other pictures as well. But look at, like, it was just so square. Okay. And also, I think it has to do that the fact that he doesn't have the most tapered waist either, because look how it's like, and then it's just square, like it's not tapered. Like you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, you go back, and I'll get to the whole the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing in a bit, but look how it's like Arnold's is sort of tapered, but Wesley's isn't. Like it's not as tapered as much. I think it has to do with his ribcage being that kind of square. Um, Let me show you another picture that works just as well. But look at this. You see how his is like, he's got that U, and Arnold's got that U as well. But then you look at Wesley's, and it's not. He doesn't have that. Watch. Let me minimize this a bit. Like, see how he doesn't have that. Like it's not. Like, I see how it doesn't look tapered like Chris Bumstead does, and it's got that U, whereas Wesley's sort of like a. It's just sort of a weird look that he has with the rib cage, and it looks like it makes his physique look blocky. And I think that's another thing that I forgot to mention, that his physique is just kind of blocky. It's his muscle development is strange. Like I don't know how to describe it, and he's the only one I've ever seen that looks like this. Like he looks kind of just like a regular bodybuilder with these genetics. Like the way he's developed his body, it looks just kind of blocky, and it's strange. You know what I mean? Like how it's just so square. And then Bumstead is like, okay, you got at least some type of a shape around here, but Wesley's is just so square. Another thing I want to talk about was I wanted to bring this up. So now we got a good comparison between the Austrian Oak and the Wessley here on the left and right. As you can see, I think Wessley, as he was a bodybuilder, and back then these guys, when bodybuilding was around, they didn't really care about the proportions, the symmetry, and the aesthetics. They really just wanted overall muscle development and to get bigger, and that's what happened here. So back then, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was training, they cared for proportion, symmetry, and aesthetics. And that's why Arnold is able to hit this pose way better than Wessley, just because look at the shoulders. Like a lot of classic bodybuilders nowadays have this issue, where I think it also has to do with the drugs as well. That I know someone told me about the something about the drugs enhancing the shoulders and the traps, and that's why they become overdeveloped. And I think that's what happens. And I feel like what they're doing wrong about that is that they're taking drugs too early before they're even able to develop their physique's best potential. Like guys like, I know Arnold jumped on the juice pretty early, but I think he had built a pretty good foundation to jump right into it, but I think some of these other guys didn't really build that foundation. Like they didn't build that foundation to set the tone for like I am training for this specific look with the biceps and triceps bigger than the shoulders, with the calves bigger than the quads, or at least lined up and whatnot. And I feel like it creates this look where it's like the shoulders are just overdeveloped, and that's why Arnold doesn't have this look. So I feel like that's what kind of ruins it. Lost my train of thought right there, but I feel like it's the shoulder development. Look at the two, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Wessley. It doesn't look so developed. It looks just more like wide. Like the other video I made about Sadiq. Not was it Sadiq? I can't remember, but look at how it's just so round. Like it takes away. It's just too much shoulder development. All right, so that's another thing I wanted to mention. Let's see. Keep pulling up the pictures. Next thing is that he tries to emulate Arnold, but the thing is he doesn't have Arnold's genetics, and I'll explain why. Okay, so I think Wessley has high lats, right? And then you got Arnold who has low lats. Look at how the lats tie into the waist, right? Like look at the development of look at their insertions. Like Arnold has more of those long lats, whereas Wessley doesn't. And it's strange because he tries to emulate Arnold, and a lot of people like compare him. I mean, I'm not sure if he tries to compare himself to Arnold, but I know a lot of people like to compare him to Arnold. But I'm pretty sure Wessley understands that, or he knows that people compare him to Arnold, so he likes to hit those poses just like Arnold does. But the thing is, he doesn't have the genetics like Arnold Schwarzenegger does. Like Wessley has more of the high lats, and Arnold has the long lats that tie into the waist, kind of like Franco did, right? Those are the type of genetics I have too. I have long lats that almost tie into my waist, whereas Wessley doesn't. He has high lats, and it's strange that he tries to hit poses like Arnold when he doesn't have the genetics for it. Like it doesn't make any sense. Um, but that's another thing that I wanted to point out, and I'll show you another picture as well. You see how like the lats? Look at how Arnold's lats are like down here. This is like where they end, and the Wesleys are still up here. This is what I mean by like it doesn't make any sense that he's trying to emulate Arnold on stage when he doesn't have the genetics for it. Like this is a guy named I think his name's Joe or Joel on Nick Strength and Power. He made a video about him, right? That guy. Now that guy we're talking about right now, Joe has the genetics like Arnold Schwarzenegger does. He's able to hit poses like Arnold. Like there's you gotta see that picture of him on Instagram, man. He's doing like a side chest and looks just like Arnold Schwarzenegger does, right? And then you pull up Wessley. Like if you pull up these two pictures, bad picture, bad picture, bad picture. Oh, actually, you know what? Better picture. That's better. You see something about it just it doesn't resemble Arnold. Like it doesn't. Like you guys gotta look at that guy named Joe on Instagram. I'm actually might even try pulling him up right now. Do it in another video, but he definitely resembles Arnold Schwarzenegger more than Wessley does, and that's why Joe is able to get away with it, whereas Wessley can't. Wessley just doesn't have the genetics like Arnold does, and I think it's strange that he tries to hit the pose just like he does. So it just doesn't look right. Like look, the rib cage is off. The lats, Arnold has long lats, whereas Wessley doesn't. So that's sort of why it doesn't hold. It doesn't really define the reason why the judges don't think Wesley's classic enough. But I feel like he's trying to like when you think of classic bodybuilding, right? You think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're like, oh yeah, classic bodybuilding. You want to look like Arnold? That's so cool. But then when you don't have genetics like Arnold, and you think just because you can hit poses like he can, you're gonna come off as classic. That's wrong. That's not the way it works. Like classic bodybuilding is sort of creating your own type of physique that is unique to you. Arnold has his own type of unique physique because he had big calves, pretty striated legs. He had the biggest chest and the biggest back in the day, and that was his own look. Whereas Tom Platz, his thing was like his legs, right? Whereas Frank Zane was the symmetry and the aesthetics. Franco was his back. So Brian Buchanan, his waist. Like it's Wesley's trying to emulate someone he can't really emulate just because he doesn't have the genetics. And I feel like he thinks just because he's getting off by hitting the poses like Arnold, he's gonna be seen as classic. And I think a lot of people are fooled by that as well. They think, oh, wow, Wessley, Arnold 2.0, that's so cool, it's so classic. No, he doesn't have the genetics. Like the rib cage is off the lats, and I think he's too overly conditioned. He's just too ripped. Like guys back then weren't that striated. They weren't that shredded. That doesn't look right. And the last thing I want to talk about is I want to show you more of the rib cage. I don't know if I've talked about that already, but it could be. I mean, I want to show you another example. Look at the rib cage. Look how it's like it's sort of a round rib cage here, and then here it's like just so square. Like I think that's his genetics as well. I don't know what it is. It might be just genetics, but it's just so square. It doesn't look right. There's something wrong with it. It might be because he's not able to hit a vacuum deep enough. Because that's what it almost seems like to me. Maybe because I've never seen it in person, but from what I've observed in pictures and videos, it doesn't look like he can hit the vacuum deep enough. And on top of that, it's the rib cage, the structure of his rib cage as well. And the last thing, it's his posing as well. Last thing is his posing that it's off and it doesn't look like okay, look at the way he look he doesn't tuck the arm back enough and he doesn't pull and push the cage out enough. Like he needs to like man, if I could just hold on to him and bring his shoulder down, have him lean back a bit, pull the arm back so that the chest comes out and the rib cage pops out some more. And I think that'd be good. It just his posing's off when he tries to hit a pose like Arnold. Like he's got the chest. The chest is good, but the shoulders are just overdeveloped. That's the part that's kind of wrong. But it's the way he poses as well. Like this, I'm not entirely sure if this is how he hits the side chest. But you guys got to definitely take a look at the guy named Joe on Instagram. The classic bodybuilder that Nick's Strength and Power made a video about. 10 times more classic than 10 times looks more like Arnold than Wessley does, is what I mean by that. But I think it's also the way Wessley poses as well, because, like I said, he tries to hit poses that are kind of like Arnold, and they don't work out, right? Like, there's something about his physique that just doesn't look right. It just looks a bit blocky, just to summarize all of it. So just to recap on everything, we talked about the drugs that he uses. I feel like he has too much of a shredded look. He's too conditioned. I feel like it kind of affects it because like bodybuilders back then weren't that shredded. And then this rib cage is a bit strange because it protrudes out a lot right here, and it's not like you got to look at guys like Reg Park, Frank Zane, Mike Menser. Like when you think of Mike Menser, does he look like this when he hits his pose? No, there's something about it that's just it doesn't look tapered enough, or the rib cage isn't round enough. And that's something you can't really change just because those are just genetics, you know. You're born with the bones you have. And the shoulders, we talked about the shoulders, that they're just too developed. They're too round. Too much too much front deltoid, rear deltoid, the side head, the shoulder. I think it's just too developed. And over here, you can see that it's still overdeveloped. And I think over the years he's been trying to bring the arms up, but it's just I think it's already gone a little bit too far, and he needs to try to create a different approach to fixing this, because like a lot of guys who are classic nowadays have this issue where they just have too much shoulder development. They care too much about bodybuilding back then, and they didn't really care about what really mattered in classic bodybuilding, which is the symmetry portions and aesthetics. So, and then again, he tries to emulate Arnold when he doesn't have the genetics for it. Like it doesn't make any sense. Look at that, like long lats, high lats. Like why are you hitting poses like Arnold that you don't have his genetics? And I already said that the posing tries to hit poses like Arnold when he doesn't have the genetics for it. So yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. With that being said, subscribe for more videos like this. Give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Old School Dan. I'm gone. Peace.